It's still 11 years away.
Is it?
Jay will be like in his late 80s. I will be like 75 when this thing goes down.
This is a guy who stares at the wall all day, Jay Leno. He waits to go to work. You know, he doesn't like to do anything but work. I don't even know if he has sex with his wife. I don't know what's going on there. So this is going to be very... What do you mean, oh? This is comedy fact. Everybody knows it.
They were laughing, but Howard was not joking. Leno is notorious for never not working. Several times, he asked NBC if they would hire a separate writing and production staff for the 8 weeks the regular Tonight Show staff took off, so he could work every week, year-round. Beyond the 46 weeks he worked on television, Leno still performed about 160 stand-up comedy dates a year. But as we got closer to the transition, NBC executives began to get cold feet. By 2007, Jeff Zucker started to consider the potential consequences of losing Leno for the network. Around this time, Fox and ABC were showing interest in Jay as private negotiations took place behind the scenes. Now, the normal and expected thing for Leno to do would be to just do what Letterman did in '93. David didn't get the job, so he moved to CBS and got his show at the 11:35 time slot and started competing with Leno. So then in 2009, Leno could let Conan take over and then go to ABC or Fox and still keep his 11:35 p.m. time slot and just start competing with Conan. But Jay Leno did not want to give up his show, and NBC wasn't necessarily trying to kick him out either, which was a recipe for disaster. You see, NBC wanted to profit off Leno and Conan, but they had no idea how to make them both happy. By 2008, Zucker began making attempts to keep Jay. He gave numerous suggestions, including high-profile specials, a Sunday night primetime show, or even a nightly cable show on USA Network. Jay kept denying all offers, and he also had a very special way of never expressing his true feelings. Like, he would never just openly say, "I don't want to give up my show," but instead he would strongly hint at it. Like in 2008 when he said, "When you do what I do, it's sort of a populist thing, so when you're not number one, you really lose." I kind of watched Howard Stern. On radio, Howard to me was a populist, the truck driver the average guy would listen to in the cafe. Truck, the old car that's 50 years old and still has an AM radio. Then he went to Sirius, and obviously it was a lot of money, but I don't hear him quoted anymore. People don't say, "Hey, did you hear what Howard said today?" And I'm sure he's still doing what he always does, but to me that seemed a mistake. It seems like Jay is saying that if he left The Tonight Show, he would no longer be number one and would drastically lose his relevance as a comedian and a celebrity. Which is true and understandable why he wouldn't want to be in that situation. Jay often expressed his number one status. He could not stop mentioning it to the world.
Let's start in 2004. 2004, I'm sitting in my office, an NBC executive comes in and says to me, listen, Conan O'Brien has gotten offers from other networks, and we don't want him to go, so we're going to give him the Tonight Show. And I said, well, I've been number one for 12 years. They said, we know that, but we don't think you can sustain that. I said, okay, how about until I fall to number two, then you fire me? No, we've made this decision. I said, that's fine.
However, many argue that the only reason Jay was number one was because of the legacy he overtook, the 3-decade powerhouse of dominance built by Johnny Carson that was just handed to him. If Johnny Carson was like Steve Jobs, building the most innovative and revolutionary tech company in the world, Jay Leno was like Tim Cook. All he needed to do was just maintain the empire that was given to him.
Jay was told 5 years ago that it was his turn to give up the driver's seat, right? That is not his bus. That's a 60-year bus that's been driving around the country, the Tonight Show, and if you're lucky enough to get to drive it, when they say, hey, you're done, you give the keys back and you say thank you. You don't flatten the tires of the guy who comes next.
Jay eventually agreed, again, to give up the Tonight Show, but he didn't leave NBC. Zucker offered Jay Leno a nightly 10 p.m. program. On December 8th, 2008, Leno informed ABC and Fox that he intended to stay with NBC, where he would produce a nightly 10 p.m. variety show titled The Jay Leno Show. And on Friday, May 29th, 2009, Jay Leno did his final Tonight Show. He interviewed Conan and did a respectable handing over of the torch.
Listen, I know you got to get back to your studio because I know you guys are doing more test shows. I just want to say I couldn't be happier. You were the only choice. You were the perfect choice. You have been an absolute gentleman in private, in the press. I agree. Conan rocks. Good luck next week, my friend.
Jay, thank you for everything.
Leno ended the episode by asking viewers to please give Conan as much support as you've given me throughout the years. But this was just the beginning of the most chaotic and corrupt 7-month stretch in entertainment history. On June 1st, 2009, The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien debuted to an audience of over 9 million viewers, performing exceptionally well in the highly sought-after young demographics. Ironically, his first guest, Will Ferrell, predicted Conan's early demise on the very first episode.
This is the first show, the first Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien. It's not a.
No, look, don't get me wrong, I'm pulling for you, man. But this whole thing's a crapshoot at best. We got some shaky studio execs back there waiting to pull the plug at any second.
Critics seemed about 50-50 on Conan's first show. One described him as painfully unfunny, whereas Tom Shales of the Washington Post wrote, "There's every indication that O'Brien will be up to the job of his illustrious predecessors." But as the show aired each night, older viewers gradually began tuning out. Now, this was expected, but viewers dropped so low that The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien was surpassed by The Late Show with David Letterman, which hadn't happened in about a decade. While Zucker assured Conan that a drop in viewership was inevitable, executives at NBC began to worry. Over time, Zucker became frustrated with O'Brien's performance as what he regarded as the booking of the wrong stars. In June of 2009, controversy ensued after David Letterman joked about politician Sarah Palin's family. Zucker, who wanted to capitalize on the situation, advised Conan to bring Sarah Palin on the show in a desperate attempt to boost viewership. Not wanting to pander to certain audiences or hurt his relationship with Letterman, Conan declined, and this decision reportedly drove Zucker nuts. Letterman maintained higher viewership than Conan for the foreseeable future, and it's not that Conan was a bad host or that his show was bad, it's just that it was entirely different than Jay Leno's version of The Tonight Show, which had previously been on for 17 years. The audience needed a little time to adjust. Jay Leno was more of a stand-up comedian who thrived in observational humor. His opening monologues were sometimes 13 minutes long, like you were getting a stand-up special every night. His famous bits were not deep or comically risky, but rather simple and quick jokes that every dad in America could understand. Like his headline segment where he read silly headlines from local newspapers across America.
And there's some good ones here. I remember these. This is one of my favorites. Miracle cure kills 5th patient. You know! You might want to rethink. Okay, here's a company that's behind the whole energy thing, way ahead of everyone else. Gas company behind Bean Supper. There you are right there. I like this one. Poverty meeting attracts poor turnout. Really?
Conan, on the other hand, approached late-night TV like a sketch comedy writer would. His show felt more comparable to SNL rather than Letterman.
Our guests don't get paid a cent.
Conan was considered by Leno's fan base, as that is mostly who he was broadcasting to be kind of cringy. The Tonight Show audience was perhaps too mainstream for Conan's off-the-wall humor, but the youth loved him, and NBC knew that investing in Conan was probably better for the longevity of the show, as Jay Leno was getting old. And that's where people suspect that Jay was intentionally sabotaging Conan behind the scenes. Part of the reason why Leno was willing to give The Tonight Show to Conan was because NBC gave him a new show called The Jay Leno Show at 10 p.m. So the new NBC TV schedule was Jay Leno Show at 10 p.m., local news at 11 p.m., then Tonight Show with Conan at 11:35 p.m. The Jay Leno Show was not different than The Tonight Show with Jay Leno at all. It was him doing monologues, sitting down with celebrity guests, all in front of a live studio audience. He took the late night format slot and put it on at 10 p.m., which had never been done before. Many people felt like Jay was essentially trying to recreate The Tonight Show, put it on at 10 p.m. so his fans would go and watch him instead of waiting up all the way until 11:35 to watch Conan.
Completely sabotaged. By going on at 10 o'clock, they gave Jay all the best guests. Right. They took away all of Conan O'Brien's excitement and thunder. Right. And then there's also
However, when Leno tells the story, he makes it seem like he didn't even want to do it, and the network would not let him out of a contract.
Okay, but I'm leaving before my contract is out, about 6 or 8 months early. So before I could go anywhere else, it would be at least a year or 18 months before I could go and do a show somewhere else. I said to NBC, would you release it from my contract? They said, no, we want to keep you here. I said, oh, okay. What are your ideas? They said, well, how about prime time? I said, well, that'll never work. And they said, no, we want to put you on at 10. We have done focus groups. People will love you at 10. Well, I don't know. It didn't seem like a good idea at the time. I said, all right. I said, can I keep my staff? There's 175 people that work here. They said, can I keep my staff? I said, yes, you can. Okay, let's try it. We guarantee you 2 years on the air, guaranteed. Now, for the first 4 or 5 months when you're against original shows like CSI, you'll get killed. But in the spring and the summer when the reruns come, that's when you'll pick up. Okay, good.
The Jay Leno Show started strong, racking up 17.7 million viewers and surpassing Conan's Tonight debut in both overall numbers and young demographic. However, like Conan, Leno's ratings began slipping fast. By the show's second week, the show saw a noticeable decline to 5 million viewers, placing immense pressure on the network. Jay Leno's low viewership had a domino effect on all of the shows afterwards. His show was so bad, even the local news was losing viewership.
The late night shakeup comes, say executives, after NBC's affiliates began crying foul. Despite Leno's repeated plugs,
Your local news starts right now.
those local newscasts are suffering, down on average 30% in the ratings since Leno became their lead-in.
Everyone was blaming Leno for driving down NBC's ratings, but it only got worse. Leno appeared in an October 29, 2009 interview with Broadcasting and Cable, where he expressed his willingness to return to his original 11:35 p.m. time slot if offered by the network. He was essentially proposing the idea to take the Jay Leno Show that was failing at 10 p.m., move it to 11:35 p.m., and then take The Tonight Show and move it from 11:35 to 12:05. Keep in mind that The Tonight Show aired at 11:35 p.m. after the local news for 60 years straight. Therefore, most people at that point felt that Jay should have said, let me not disrupt the honor and the tradition of The Tonight Show, let me just take my L and bow out. But Leno tells the story again like the network was holding him hostage and that Conan was okay with this.
They come and they go, listen, this show isn't working. We want to let you go. Can I get out of my contract? They go, no, you're still a valuable asset to the company. How valuable can I be? You fired me twice. How valuable can I be? I said, what's your idea? They said, well, look, how about you do a half-hour show at 11:30? Now, where I come from, when your boss gives you a job and you don't do it well, I think we did a good job here, but we didn't get the ratings. Okay, so you get humble. I said, okay, I'm not crazy about doing a half hour, but okay. What do you want to do with Conan? We'll put him on at midnight at 12:05. He keeps the Tonight Show, does all that. He gets the whole hour. I said, okay. You think Conan will go for that? Yes. Yes. Almost guarantee. I said, okay, shake hands, that's it.
When very poor ratings came in for the November sweeps period, NBC affiliates became alarmed, and the network's board members demanded something be done regarding the 10 p.m. lead-in. It had only been 5 months since Conan took over The Tonight Show, and 3 months since Jay launched his new show. But apparently the network was on the brink of collapse. If something were not done by January, the affiliates reasoned, they would instate syndicated programming or move up their news broadcasts and remove the Jay Leno Show. Somehow, news outlets learned about NBC's time slot shift, informing the public before Conan. TMZ reported on the story with a headline reading, NBC Shakeup, Jay Leno comes out on top. Conan was obviously pissed off, feeling like a decision was made before ever consulting him. It seemed like the obvious answer was just get rid of Jay Leno. It's gonna take time for audiences to warm up to Conan. But it's not like Conan was a rookie. He had been hosting his own late night show for 15 years at at that point, but for whatever reason, the network just didn't seem to prioritize Conan. They only seemed to make decisions based on Jay Leno's wants and needs. So after just 7 months of hosting The Tonight Show, a dream he had looked forward to since his very first debut, he decided it would be best if he just stepped down. On January 21st, 2010, Conan released his People of Earth letter, in which he explained his refusal to host The Tonight Show at 12:05 a.m., citing concerns about undermining the legacy of The Tonight Show, which had always aired at 11:35 p.m. In the last few days, I've been getting a lot of sympathy calls, and I want to start by making it clear that no one should waste a second feeling sorry for me. For 17 years, I've been getting paid to do what I love the most, and in a world with real problems, I've been absurdly lucky. That said, I've been suddenly put in a very public predicament, and my bosses are demanding an immediate decision. For 60 years, The Tonight Show has been aired immediately following the late local news. I sincerely believe that delaying The Tonight Show into the next day to accommodate another comedy program will seriously damage what I consider to be the greatest franchise in the history of broadcasting. The Tonight Show at 12:05 simply isn't The Tonight Show. Also, if I accept this move, I will be knocking the Late Night Show, which I inherited from David Letterman and passed on to Jimmy Fallon, out of its long-held time slot. That would hurt the other NBC franchise that I love, and it would be unfair to Jimmy. So it has come to this. I cannot express in words how much I enjoy hosting this program and what an enormous personal disappointment it is for me to consider losing it. My staff and I have worked unbelievably hard, and we are very proud of our contribution to the legacy of The Tonight Show, but I cannot participate in what I honestly believe is its destruction. This letter changed the tone. This wasn't just Conan saying no, it was Conan saying no, and you're wrong, and go fuck yourself. But on January 13th, 2010, Conan gave an unforgettable statement to the entire world in his opening monologue, one that would be remembered for generations.
I'm trying very hard to stay positive here, and I want to tell you something. To be honest, hosting The Tonight Show has been the fulfillment of a lifelong dream for me. And I just want to say to the kids out there watching, you can do anything you want. Yeah, unless Jay Leno wants to do it too.
This quote effectively summarized this entire war, and it cut through Jay Leno like a knife. The public response to the late night wars of 2010 was largely sympathetic towards Conan. Many saw him as the victim of a corporate mishandling of late night TV. People admired his integrity and willingness to walk away rather than compromise the show's legacy. Amid the controversy, social media users showed overwhelming support for O'Brien. Over 1 million people joined 2 Facebook groups supporting O'Brien, Team Conan and I'm with Coco. Ratings for The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien skyrocketed, and the viral support for Conan only increased by the week of his final shows. Nationwide, there were protests in favor of O'Brien outside NBC studios in New York, LA, Chicago, and Seattle. At a rally on January 18th, Conan made a brief appearance outside The Tonight Show studio, where he gave the crowd free pizza. In a poster reminiscent of the Obama Hope poster, artist Mike Mitchell superimposed an image of O'Brien with the words, "I'm with Coco," and an American flag in the background. The poster was widely circulated and displayed online at various rallies. As if it couldn't get any crazier, Jay Leno was to be named the host of The Tonight Show again. The man who promised in 2004 to pass the torch to Conan, then reluctantly did in 2009, and 7 months later he came crawling back for his spot on the throne. He could not just give up.
I had a show, my show got canceled. They weren't happy with the other guy's show. They said, we want you to go back. I said, okay. And this seemed to make a lot of people really upset. And I go, well, who wouldn't take that job? Who wouldn't do that?
Conan wouldn't do that. Nobody sided with Leno. He became the butt of many jokes, and if you couldn't tell by now, Letterman wasn't really fond of him either.
I'm telling jokes and making fun of Jay Leno over and over and over, relentlessly, mercilessly, simply for one reason, and that is, I'm really enjoying it.
Jimmy Kimmel also did an entire monologue dressed up as and acting like Leno.
Great to be here on ABC. Hey, Cleo, you know what ABC stands for? I know, man, I do. Always bump Conan. That's right.
Jay saw the bit and decided to invite Jimmy onto his show, and Jimmy proceeded to absolutely roast Leno on his own show.
Never order anything off the TV.
Like NBC ordered your show off the TV?
Yeah, no.
Strippers I don't like in general because you have this phony relationship with them for money. Similar to that of when you and Conan were on the Tonight Show together, passing the torch.
Right, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Yes.
We have lives to lead here. You've got $800 million.
On January 21st, 2010, Conan received a $45 million buyout in exchange for leaving NBC, $33 million for him, and $12 million in severance pay for his staff. Conan also paid around 50 stagehands and various crew members at least 6 weeks severance pay out of his own pocket. In his final moments on air, Conan decided to go out with grace and class.
Yes, we have our differences right now. Yes, we're going our separate ways. But this company has been my home for most of my adult life. I'm enormously proud of the work we've done together. And I want to thank NBC for making it all possible. I have something to say to our fans. Here's what all of you have done. You made a sad situation joyous and inspirational. So to all the people watching, I can never, ever thank you enough for the kindness to me. I'll think about it for the rest of my life. Nobody in life gets exactly what they thought they were going to get. But if you work really hard and you're kind, amazing things will happen. I'm telling you, amazing things will happen.
Conan's final episode drew 10.3 million viewers. Not only did O'Brien's final show beat all late-night competition, it outscored all primetime shows in the 18 to 49 demographic from that night and the night before. On March 1st, 2010, NBC confirmed that Jay Leno would officially resume as the host of The Tonight Show. 1 month later, Conan signed with TBS to produce the late-night talk show, Conan. The program debuted on the network in November, premiering to 4 million viewers. Leno's return to The Tonight Show accumulated 6.6 million viewers. He once again beat out Letterman for much of his run, remaining back at the #1 spot for many years after. From a business perspective, NBC made the right decision. They saved their show and they saved their ratings.
The biggest thing people come up and say to me in gas stations and restaurants, I have so many people say this to me. Hey, partner, you got screwed. I don't, and I always tell them, no, I didn't. I didn't get screwed. I'm fine. It didn't work out.
Well, you did get screwed.
You think I got screwed?
Well, I think most people think you got screwed. I mean, Jay Leno thinks you got screwed. Jay Leno thinks he got screwed.
How did he get screwed? Like that part to me.
In 2012, Conan said that he had not talked to Jay since. The odds are we will both leave this earth without speaking to each other, which is fine. There's really nothing to say. We both know the deal. He knows, I know, I'd rather just forget. In 2014, Leno was still #1, but now he was much older, and the network wanted to usher in a younger and fresher face to take over The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon. But this time, Jay Leno totally understood why.
You would have preferred to stay.
Well, it's always nice to keep working. Sure it is. Sure it is. But am I extremely grateful? Yeah. Do I understand the circumstances? Yes, of course.
This is the part I don't understand. I mean, you're still,
Well,
#1.
I think because you have talented people only wait so long before they get other opportunities, and you don't want to lose that opportunity. That makes sense to me. And I thought Jimmy has been extremely gracious and polite.
You said all of the same things exactly about Conan.
Huh? Did I say the same thing?
Yeah.
Probably. Well, maybe I did.
It's easy to see how Conan got the short end of the stick, even though the short end was a $33 million payday and a brand new show on TBS where he was able to do literally whatever he wanted. It's pretty clear that Jay did not want to give up The Tonight Show, and he plays dumb, but he had to know that his 10 p.m. talk show would kill The Tonight Show's ratings, right? So did he really try to sabotage Conan on purpose, or was he honestly just following his boss's lead? In this classic hero vs. villain story, it's way sexier and easier to just point the blame at Leno. But it's painfully obvious the real villain is NBC. Once again, the corporate executives operating in the shadows receive all of the financial upside and never have to face any of the criticism.
Live from New York, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, welcome back to Lorne Michaels' basement. He told me he wouldn't let me out of here until I made another video about his show. So I'm a big SNL fan, and I'm not just saying that because of the current hostage situation. I've actually been watching it since I was a kid. I'm one of the biggest defenders of the show. I love it for what it is. I like the format. I like the excitement of doing a live show and discovering new, young, talented people. And I'm always impressed by the work that goes into it, like building giant set pieces and elaborate props in just a few short days every week. That being said, there's still plenty to criticize about the show, from some of their questionable hosting choices to the painfully cringy sketches they roll out from time to time, but nothing is more annoying to me than the blanket statement that SNL hasn't been funny in 20 years. No, 50 years. Hell, they haven't made me laugh since 1932, when One-Eyed Leslie did his world-famous Calvin Coolidge impression. Those were the good old days. These are the type of comments you'll hear on random YouTube videos, SNL's Instagram page, or shouted from someone's front porch. And I've always been curious to go back and see what all the fuss is about. The way these people describe the show would make you think it looks like this, when in reality I would bet it's a little bit more like this. And now that every episode ever made is available on Peacock, a service I will stop using the moment I'm done with this video, I figured why don't I go back and actually watch some of these episodes. Only then can I give an accurate take on the evolution of the show. Here goes nothing. The very first episode of Saturday Night Live looked a lot different than what would become of the show. The host was comedian George Carlin, and he didn't appear in any of the sketches. He just did a few sets of stand-up in between them and introduced the musical acts, which included two really great performances from Billy Preston. I liked a lot of his jokes, but there was one line in particular that influenced how I watched the rest of the episode.
Do you ever look at the crowds in old movies and wonder if they're dead yet?
God damn it, now I'm gonna do that. The pilot was more of a true variety show, in the literal sense of the word. You had some stand-up, a bunch of songs, this classic bit by Andy Kaufman, who had no affiliation with the show and came on just to do this, a random Muppet sketch, and even a short film just thrown into the middle. It seemed like the goal of this was to appeal to as many people as possible and quickly move on from thing to thing, just in case the audience might start dozing off. This was actually one of the first things I noticed about the episodes was how short the sketches were. For the most part, they were just one joke. Setup, punchline, move on to the next. They were definitely just as hit or miss as SNL has always been, but this is a pretty far cry from the current shows where every other sketch goes on just a little bit too long. For a pilot episode, this was a pretty fun time all around and had a good flow to it. I hope they get picked up for season 2. Okay, forget what I said about the sketches being too short. I guess they stopped doing that. The worst one in this episode went on for almost 12 minutes. And it didn't really have like a theme or a joke throughout. It was just a bunch of wacky characters taking turns being wacky. The audience seemed to like a lot of these sketches, but most of them didn't really do it for me. My favorite part was Steve Martin's monologue. You'll probably be seeing a lot of him in this video because he used to host the show all the time, and he's also one of my favorite comedians. Guess who hosted this season? That's right, O.J. Simpson. If you don't know who O.J. is, he was a football player turned movie star, and then nothing else of note happened. He did a pretty good job on the show, but man, 70s humor is just not for me. The lead-off sketch in this episode was John Belushi as a samurai, and I don't understand what the bit is or why the whole thing culminated in a big dance mix. Bill Murray's on the show now, which is cool, but I think my favorite cast member from this era is Jane Kirk. I love her delivery, and I could definitely see how she ended up inspiring a bunch of younger writers and comedians like Tina Fey. I thought this joke was hilarious about a former attorney general who was being given a 2-week furlough from prison in order to get hip replacement surgery.
According to our sources, Mitchell's secret plan is to systematically replace every limb